The PS5 Pro has all but been confirmed at this point, and sources are claiming that dev kits have been sent out, and we now have a timeline for when this will show up. Now, we recently did a stream about this. It's sort of a follow-up to that stream where I essentially argued that the PS5 Pro could pose a problem if it doesn't arrive at the right time. Existing users of the PlayStation 5 might feel that it shows up too early. There's also lots of people who still have not gotten their hands on a PS5, and Sony seems to want to ramp up distribution with high goals for PS5 market saturation for 2023 and 2024. If it's announced too soon, it could diminish the demand for the current version of the PS5, and we know they've updated the SKU. There will be an announcement about that probably at the PlayStation Showcase, where there will be a unified version of the PlayStation 5 so that if you want a disk drive, there will be an external option to buy. That will drive production costs down, which will likely lead to a price reduction of the PS5 in the fourth quarter of 2023. Now, I have an article we're going to look at in just a second here that's walking through who's saying it, why are they saying it, and who's getting the dev kits and when should we expect to see a PS5 Pro. If you like my content, make sure you're hitting that like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss the live shows or uploads like this. Now, the other problem that a PS5 Pro could pose is for all of those people that are going to be buying a PS5 leading up to the announcement of the Pro. So I would take some caution here. If you've been sort of waiting on getting a PS5, you may want to wait a little bit longer so that you don't end up doing that. You know, everybody always kind of ends up falls in, to that with an Apple iPhone, right? You buy it because the price gets dropped, and then all of a sudden they drop the new one. Now, the advantage typically when a Pro model drops is that the original will drop in price again. So we could see a price drop, as I said, I think fourth quarter of this year, because they are going to be able to drive production costs down. I think that's one of the reasons why they're anticipating a really big surge in market saturation, because they're going to be able to attack this from both sides. They're going to be able to minimize production costs, which will make it more efficient. They'll be able to make them quite a bit quicker. Instead of making two separate models, they'll be making one. And then if they can couple that with a price decrease, well, then these things are going to sell insanely fast. So let's take a look at this article from xfire.com saying the PlayStation 5 Pro is coming out in quarter 4 of 2024. So that's what we're looking at. So if you're looking at getting yourself a PlayStation 5, just be aware that for the rest of this year and virtually all of next year, you're good to go. But if it gets into late 2024 or the middle of 2024, it might be time to wait a little bit longer. I would imagine this would get announced in the summer of 2024, coupled with a potential price decrease again, just to sort of continue to keeping the market flooded with and saturated with normal PS5s. And that's likely why they wanted to shrink down production into one model to keep those production costs down. So that way, if the sales slow down a little bit, it's not a big deal. Maybe they can start to make a profit on them. I'm not actually sure what the margins are per unit. An insider doubled down on their recent report detailing everything that's part of PlayStation's hardware pipeline, including a mid-cycle upgrade. So let's scroll down here. You'll probably be familiar with the report they're going to refer to, because that's what we used in our previous stream, where we talked about how I thought the PS5 Pro might be a problem if it doesn't land at the right time. Sony's decision to release a mid-cycle console upgrade in 2017 was always going to have an effect on every new console coming after it. Regardless of whether it's happening or not, the market will always look out for a PS5 Pro, if only because Sony has done it before. I actually agree with that. If you look, it's a predicted search term. If you go to Google, if you go to YouTube, and you just search PS5 and you put the word, like the letter P, I don't even know if you have to do that. It'll just be like, oh, you looking for the PS5 Pro? It definitely is something that people are looking out for, especially if you're considering getting a PlayStation 5. That's always going to be that question in someone's mind is, should I wait? Should I, wait for the new one to come out? And here we go. While Sony has yet to confirm that a PlayStation 5 Pro is coming nearly 3 years in and 40 million PS5 units sold later, this has not stopped the rumor mill from churning out new information. This time, the latest info comes from someone who's had an excellent track record when it comes to leaks. After confirming that a Pro variant is in development a few months ago, Insider Gaming doubled down on that said report saying the following. This is the one we pulled from previously. It's been a hot topic of discussion as of late, but yes, Insider Gaming has previously revealed that Sony does have a PlayStation 5 Pro in development. Our report in March was dismissed as being inaccurate by many when it was the first reported, and although the PlayStation 5 Pro could be canceled at any given time, Insider Gaming can report with a 100% degree of certainty that the PlayStation 5 Pro is currently in development. So they're going really hard here. That's a very strong statement from any source, any outlet of information. That's pretty locked in, and here's why. While we cannot report on any more specifics at this time, we understand that the first dev kit prototypes will be going to first-party developers within the next couple of months, with third-party developers receiving them by the end of the year. Now, they're not the only person to talk about these dev kits going out. I saw this reported on Twitter. I saw some inventory pages. They looked legitimate. They looked like, inventory pages. They didn't look, scandalous or that exciting, just a lot of letters and numbers and things being tracked. But it did seem to be that people are getting their hands on information, that there are dev kits being sent or scheduled to be sent out to the first-party developers. Continuing here from Xfire, they say Q4 2024 could either be anywhere between October to December 2024 or January to March 2025, but we're betting on the former. I would say holiday of 2024 is when this will land. They can announce it in the summer, and that holiday push is really, really big. They could couple this with Wolverine. That's likely when we're going to see Wolverine. Spider-Man's going to land this year. Wolverine's sort of slated for next year. That's tentative, but that would be a really good push. Those big holiday pushes for games, especially when it is somebody well-known, an iconic franchise, an iconic character, that could be a good pairing. The timeline lines up with the release of the PS4 Pro, which came 4 years after the PS4 hit the store shelves. However, it's hard to think that a PS5 Pro is indeed in development. I don't think that's hard to think at all. I mean, Sony's crushing it at almost every level, and if they really get the hardware distribution that they want with the PS5, the demand for a Pro would be huge, because you have to think about every single person that has purchased a PS5 in 2020, 2021, and 2022. They would all be very likely to want to upgrade because they've had it for a while. And then obviously anybody who buys it in 2023, that would be a little bit of a harder sell. But again, the demand for this console is so high, and if they can lower that price on the PS5 because of that unified SKU, it'd be a little bit easier to take. Be like, well, I got the PS5, but I got it when it went on sale, or I got it when the price went down. This is a leisure market, and leisure markets tend to spend high premium for the newest thing. All you got to do is look at the iPhone, and I think the PlayStation's kind of becoming the iPhone of the console world. I think Doc Dark's the one that said that, and I really think that's true. They're being sort of viewed in that way. Early adoption, buy all the hardware, buy the controllers. I think it's a pretty good analogy. There's definitely a culture there. There's something that people really want to be a part of. So I would think that the PS5 Pro would be perfectly fine to develop and distribute. The rumors are it's going to accelerate ray tracing, which would be right in line with what they've already done with the PS5 architecture, with Mark Cerny doing really good work and talking to developers. Developers really want to push ray tracing because it automates so much of the lighting work. It makes their jobs easier. So having another premier console in the market that is enabling them to do those things, you would then just shut ray tracing off potentially, or turn some of it down in the PS5 versions, and the Pro would be able to utilize a whole lot more of the ray tracing suite. More here. Official announcements or lack thereof aside, there isn't a strong incentive for the PS5 Pro to exist. I completely disagree with that. Again, I just highlighted a really strong reason for it to exist. You're going to make your platform the premium platform to develop for and be able to continue push next gen and push ray tracing. Xbox looks terrible right now in the next-gen landscape. Redfall falling flat on its face. The only really good next-gen showcase of their platform is Flight Sim and Forza, and those are more technical games if you think about it. There's not a lot of intensity or action going on. High-speed cars, sure, but it's not the same as a lot of the titles we're getting to see on the PlayStation 5. And if Starfield comes out and can't really push the next-gen graphical envelope, the PlayStation can stand apart and be literally the only true next-gen landscape out there. Don't forget, the PS5 Pro was born out of necessity because of the sharp rise in the adoption of 4K TVs. I can't speak to this being the real reason that the PS4 Pro came into existence, so I'll just sort of maybe take that at face value. That sounds really reductionist. I don't know if that's the exact reason that it happened, but that's what they're saying. It didn't get a lot of performance boosts in the game. I actually think whoever wrote this should probably just do a teeny bit of research, not trying to be insulting, but maybe do some research into ray tracing and why developers love it so much. I was ignorant on this. I had somebody educate me on this. Why do they keep doing ray tracing? It seems like a resource hog and a gimmick. Developers love it. And PlayStation's proven that they listen to developers and they deliver hardware that makes their games very easy to develop for the PlayStation platform. That would be right in line with the rumors that we've heard about the potential of a PS5 Pro accelerating ray tracing. The world has barely moved on from 4K resolution since, even if 8K resolution monitors and TV sets and higher already exist, they're not necessarily mainstream yet, even among hardcore gamers. Don't forget a larger hard drive could also be in this model. That's a big demand right now. Games are getting bigger and bigger. The PS5 Pro may instead aim for higher frame rates at 4K resolution with ray tracing, which is definitely one possible reason. See, now you're cooking with gas. The frame rates being higher at 4K could be possible, like actually maybe getting 4K 60. Every time you turn on 4K in virtually every next-gen game now, it's 4K 30. Every time you turn on ray tracing, it tends to drop it down to 30, so that could be another possibility. The only problem with this is that this would make the PS5 Pro exclusively for hardcore gamers, specifically those who play FPS titles and other genres that benefit from the most higher frame rates. Again, I just completely disagree with this take, because a high-end console, you want the best graphics, not just because you're playing shooters. I don't even really gravitate to games that are competitive and high octane, but if you give me better frame rates and better graphics in games like God of War and Horizon Forbidden West and Ghost of Tsushima, I'm going to want that. So again, I don't think they understand the PlayStation audience. I really don't. Whoever wrote this, I think they're slightly out of touch with the PlayStation audience. I think this thing would sell like crazy. Still, nailing frame rates doesn't justify a brand new console enough, especially if it adds up to selling for more than $500. It's also worth noting that studios have barely pushed the PS5 to its limit. I don't agree with this either. There's nothing in the market to tell us this. In fact, the developers of Final Fantasy XVI have all but said they have done this, that it will show the power of the PS5. And I think most of what we've seen in Final Fantasy XVI is amazing, but it doesn't look leaps and bounds above Horizon Forbidden West or God of War Ragnarok. And if you look at Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores, I'm telling you, we're right at the top of what this console can already do. It's impressive. They already know the limitations of this hardware. Most of the hardware in the PS5 is not something new to development and the dev world, because a lot of it's very similar to what's possible on PCs right now. The current performance issues faced by the PS5 as well as the Xbox Series X and S have more to do with the lack of optimization than anything else. I mean, that is 100% true, okay? True. They're going to mention Jedi Survivor. There was an apology, right? Optimization has way less to do with the console, though. It has way more to do with a game coming to market before it's ready. Like, I faulted Disney for Jedi Survivor because they wanted a new Star Wars game every 6 months, and that's not how you deliver games. You don't just set some arbitrary date and say, yep, every 6 months we want a Star Wars game. Star Wars Jedi Survivor's launch date doesn't even make any sense. They could have landed on May the 4th, and they didn't. They went 1 week before May the 4th. Whoever made that decision is not even remotely tuned into marketing possibilities. Just silly. But that has nothing to do with the PlayStation 5 and tapping into its power. Multi-platform games that are poorly optimized have absolutely nothing to do with the PlayStation 5. The first-party titles landing on PlayStation look remarkable. And I'm telling you right now, what Sony's leveraging is the fact that if they could become the premier console, especially for ray tracing, they would get a lot of inadvertent PlayStation 5 exclusives and they wouldn't even have to pay for it. Companies would just say, we love developing for your platform. It's easier. It's better. We can do more things. They would just skip the Xbox. You'd have a lot of Final Fantasy 16s, basically, is what I'm saying. Games that just are made for the PlayStation 5, and there's no real reason to bring them to the Xbox, and they could leverage that with their hardware. A PS5 Pro could let gamers enjoy a dedicated ray tracing graphics mode without sacrificing performance. Unfortunately, this speaks to a niche group within a niche community. Once again, completely disagree. I think higher-end console gamers and people that want the best graphics don't think that they're niche, because they're not. Look at how these consoles were sold. They were sold on better graphics, and they sold like crazy, so an upgrade would also sell like crazy. If I'm supposed to believe that the PlayStation 4 Pro sold well purely because of 4K televisions, I simply don't believe that. It landed in the exact same era of the landscape and the life cycle of the PlayStation 4, and people bought it, and they would do the exact same thing with the PS5 Pro. Finally, we've barely gotten started with the current gen games. Last year's PS5 exclusives, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, and Gran Turismo 7, performed well even though they were cross-platform. Final Fantasy 16 and Marvel Spider-Man 2 could change that, but we doubt that either game could push the PS5 the way The Last of Us did with the PS3, which signaled the PS3 was in dire need of a generational jump. That's not a bad point, but again, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't go to a Pro model that could accelerate ray tracing. Again, some of the research behind ray tracing, I think, would change their perspective a little bit in the writing of this, because that is something that devs really, really want. Again, there's a pattern with Mark Cerny, there's a pattern with PlayStation of listening to devs. Sony can't justify a PS5 Pro if it's built specifically for competitive gamers. The biggest esports titles aren't on consoles, so this discussion is moot. I don't think that's the drive, so I don't think it's not moot. It's not even on the table. Honestly, the idea of a PS5 Pro is the only one we aren't buying based on the same report. The rest are plausible, like the new and slimmer design for the PS5 that's supposedly coming out in September. Well, you know what? Everybody's got different opinions and different perspectives, and I think they're missing the mark by thinking there's no reason to make it and that people wouldn't buy it. That is not true. The saturation of the PS5 Pro would probably be very, very good, because the market is answering very strongly to a high-end piece of equipment for the best possible graphics. And if another one comes out mid-generation, it would likely sell the same. As always, hit like, leave a comment below. I love hearing from you guys. Make sure you hit subscribe and the bell button so I can see you in the next one.